Hello, peeps. Welcome to Mystery Mondays. I'm going to try to start doing these at 11 a.m. every Monday. I don't know how well I'll be able to do that. I barely made it today because I had so much stuff to type in for my description. But the main focus of my Mystery Monday today was supposed to be the cold cases in the national parks, as well as follow-ups on the Gabby Petito case, the Robert Bob Lowery case, the Aubrey Dameron case, Josue Calderon's case, and of course information concerning Brian Laundrie. Most of those, there's not very much information out there anymore. Also the Kylan Schulte case and Crystal Turner Beck case. But I ended up also finding some other open cases that were mentioned in a story that I was using as one of my references. So I am going to talk about those cases as well. And what I've decided I'm going to do, I'm only covering in this one, I believe, 10 of the cases of the cold cases because I wanted to cover the other things. So yes, I'm covering 10 of the cold cases in the national parks in the United States this week. So what I've decided that I'm going to do is next week I will try to cover 5 or 6 additional ones of those cold cases in the national parks, and I'm also going to define what is meant by that. And I'm going to try to do 5 or 6 of those each week, and then I'm going to, once I have completed them, each week I'm going to reflect back on 5 or 6 cases instead of looking into new stuff, if that makes sense. And of course, I'm going to do updates on the cases as information becomes available. I might just look them all up, and if there's new information, and some of these have actually already been solved. So I was like, I'm not exactly sure why they're still listed on there. But part of them were ones that were the newer ones. So I'm going to try to make this not last very long, but odds are it's probably going to end up being about an hour. My grandson is here, and I'm hoping that he doesn't wake up and need to before I get done. Anyway, so as I said, this one is mainly about the missing persons cases, cold cases in the United States national parks. And the first source that I found was insider.com with an online article for September the 18th, 2021, which was by Sarah Al-Arshani. Sorry if I butcher her name. It said several people went missing in the national parks across the United States in that week alone, which is basically the period from September the 11th through the 18th. Though I believe it actually only covered the 12th through the 18th. Since there is no database, it is unclear how many people go missing in national parks every year in the United States. Most of those cases are actually reported to police stations or sheriff's offices in the area where the national parks are, where the missing persons park goes, or in the area where they actually live. Yeah, because that's the people that realize they're missing and they report them missing. And then it's discovered that they had gone to a national park, or maybe they already knew that. But anyway, there are 29 cold cases, which are the ones I plan to discuss in my vlog every Monday until I have completed that and hopefully helped shed some light on that information. Those are of missing people in the national parks that go back as far as the 1950s, 1958 to be exact. More recent cases of missing people in national parks, and I'm going to cover Robert Bob Lowery twice in this video, just so you know. The more recent cases of missing people in the national parks include Robert Bob Lowery, who was 46 and went missing in the Grand Teton National Park on August 20th. As we know, his remains were found on September 28th, 2021 at the base of Wyoming's Teton Pass in the Bridger Teton National Park, not far from where Gabby Petito's remains were found. I mean, it was, but not, it wasn't in the same general area. It was like probably, I think they said about 40 minutes away to drive even. So not real close, but, and his remains were found near where he had last been seen. And some of that is what I have more information on later. He was a father from Texas who used to work in real estate and had planned to visit several national parks before starting a new job. And of course, it was his death was ruled as a suicide. So his is one of the cases that is most likely closed. The next more recent one is Cliff Beck, 66, from Maryland. He was reported missing in Grand Canyon National Park on September 12th. An errant ground search was conducted, and Beck was found alive on September 17th, 2021. He had been hiking alone and was found in the back country along the north rim of the Grand Canyon National Park. So his is another case that is closed, as is the next one. The next one is Jerren Fisher, who is 26. It didn't say where he came from. He failed to return from a solo hike in Olympic National Park in Washington State on September 12th. On September 21st, which is, my math is failing me here, 9 days, yes, 9 days after he had gone missing, Fisher was lifted via helicopter from a ravine in the park by the Coast Guard at about 8 p.m. and flown to an airport to be taken to a hospital where he was listed in stable condition. And I'm like, so apparently he got stranded or possibly injured himself and was unable to get up from that ravine area, but he was in stable condition. So I believe his case is most likely also closed at this time, as is the next one, ironically. September 16th, there were 2 kayakers who were reported missing at Pictured Rocks National Lakeshore in Michigan. On the 17th, search and rescue found one of them deceased. The following day, the 18th, it was reported the other body had been recovered, and sadly, both of them were dead. Their names were not released by the National Park Service, as their family did not wish for the names to be released, most likely. On approximately September 12th, Joel Thomazin, 31, of California, went missing in Yosemite National Park when he didn't return from a solo hiking trip he intended to end on September 9th. As of September 28th, 2021, he is still missing, with no updated reports about him. But I do have a little bit more information on him that I'm going to get to here in a minute. Also, 69-year-old Richard Judd has been missing since July 25th of 2021, and he is also missing in Yosemite National Park. I will have more information on both of these guys here in a little bit. It says, Judd took a day hike from his camp near Lower Merced Pass Lake. Sorry if I mispronounced that. To Red Peak Pass. He is 5'11", weighs about 150 pounds. This is Richard Judd we're talking about here, who's 69 years old. He's 5'11", weighs about 150 pounds. He has brown eyes, short graying hair, and a beard. He was using white trekking poles and had a navy blue day pack. I thought that information would be important, especially the white trekking poles. Thomazin, which was the first guy I was speaking of in this group, I guess this is actually the only information I have on them since they are more recent cases. But Thomazin planned a solo hike from Hetch Hetchy on September 6th to fish at Lake Eleanor and return home September 9th. Park officials said he may have chose to stay out longer and went to Cherry Lake or to the north or east of where Lake Eleanor is. He may have chosen to continue on to the north or the east or go to the Cherry Lake area. Oh, yes, and they stated that he may have possibly even gone as far as the Grand Canyon of the Tuolumne River. I I probably am not pronouncing that right, but the Tuolumne, I think it is, River, and said all wilderness travelers north of Tioga Road and between Cherry Lake and Tuolumne Meadows are asked to report possible sightings of Thomazin or any unattended / possibly abandoned equipment to park authorities, which you should always report equipment that you think may be abandoned, because it might belong to someone who is missing, and it might help the National Park Service authorities be able to find them. And it's said that Thomazin had an inflatable kayak that was most likely packed in a large red pouch, which it came in attached to his backpack. His family provided a list of equipment he may have been carrying, which includes a floppy boonie hat, dark blue / green hammock, large yellowish tan Kelty pack, a U.S. Army steel cup dated 1918, which should be a pretty unique item, a camelback type red /back day pack, which is a pack that you carry your water in, a black and yellow collapsible sink, bright red inflatable kayak, the one that would have been in the bright red pack attached to his backpack, they believe, a small collapsible stove in a black bag, a kayak paddle, a Petzl Zipka headlamp, a yellow bear can, which I'm guessing is something you'd use to keep bears away. I don't know for sure. Garmin Tactics Delta Solar GPS watch, a bright green mummy sleeping bag, fishing pole, and fishing gear. And I'm like, geez, he was sure carrying a whole lot of stuff if he was walking with all of this. Like, golly, that's a whole lot of stuff. And of course, Thomazin is the one that it said was 31 years old. So he's fairly young and probably in good shape, probably used to carrying that much stuff. Find where I was at. And it says, if any items are found, leave them in place, note the location, preferably using coordinates if possible, and take photos. Hikers would know how to get the coordinates for the area that they're at. And it says to email that information to email that information to yosemite.search.rescue. Those are the periods, not the word dot. yosemite.search.rescue@gmail.com. And you can also call or text National Park Service Investigative Services Branch Tip Line, which I put the number in my description. That number is 888-653-0009. Golly, I'm taking a lot longer to do this than I did when I practiced, but that information is for Thomazin. Also, Richard Judd, since he went missing in the same area. However, the National Park tip line, I'm sure you could use for any items that you do find that you think might belong to someone that may be missing. And you can also, you should also leave the items in place if you find something that does not belong to you that looks like it's maybe been abandoned or left behind, and get those coordinates and take a picture of it and email it to them or text it to them and be like, this is, I found this here and it might belong to someone who's missing. So now I'm going to talk about information concerning the at least 29 cold cases of missing persons in the United States national parks. The oldest case was reported in 1958, and as of September the 18th, 2021, there were approximately 21,000 open missing person cases in the United States. That's not in the national parks, that is in the United States itself. Some of which are missing in national parks, as these cases, as I said a while ago, are generally reported to the nearest sheriff's office or police station. Some are reported in the area they live because their relatives have realized that they haven't come back from their trip or that they're not at their home as they should be. Per KDVR.com, Yosemite National Park. Now, some of this is messed up because I should have just edited what I had already written, but anyway, per KDVR.com, Yosemite National Park and Grand Canyon National Park have the most missing persons cases in our national parks. That's what they stated, but that is not true given the actual story that it showed. It shows that Gateway National Recreation Area has the most, and the Lake Mead National Recreation Area also has more missing people. More people reported missing as of the latest year recorded, which was 2017, because they don't have a lot of data. They don't keep the database. They don't have a database for that. I'm sorry. Yosemite and Grand Canyon National Parks have the most cold cases, is what they were actually trying to say, not the most cases of missing people. But Yosemite and Grand Canyon National Parks do have the most cold cases of missing persons in our national parks. Rocky Mountain National Park had the most search and rescue missions in 2017, which is when that most recent data was available. Among the Colorado national parks, the Rocky Mountain National Park had the highest amount of search and rescue missions, because that data that they provided was actually only for the national parks in the state of Colorado, which does not include a lot of them. Despite their larger number of search and rescue missions, they only have 2 missing persons cold cases. On February 28th, 2019, 70-year-old James Pruitt was reported missing there and has not been located as of September 22nd, 2021. I will give more information on his case and the Robert Bizup case in a minute. That information will come directly from the National Park Service's website. In 1958, 10-year-old Robert Bizup went missing near Estes Park. His remains were located in 1959, so I stated I'm not sure why they include his data in the cold cases for missing persons anymore. He has been found and is therefore not missing. I suppose the case concerning what happened to him has gone cold. I will try to find more information on this case from a blog next Monday, which I actually found on the National Park Service's website. It defines what they consider to be cold cases in the national parks concerning missing persons. So, Yosemite National Park has 11 cold cases of missing persons. Grand Canyon National Park has 5. The Great Smoky Mountains National Park has 4. Shenandoah National Park has 2, and I apologize if I pronounce this wrong. Chiricahua National Monument has 1, as do Yellowstone National Park, Hawaii Volcanoes National Park, Crater Lake National Park, and Mesa Verde National Park. And now I'm going to give information that I found on the National Park Service's website, which is nps.gov. Some of the information that I will give, though, is stuff that I looked up related to that, but most of this is just directly from their website. Oops, I have woke up my grandson. It's okay, Joey. Per their website, their cold cases include missing persons, accidents, or crimes that have yet to be solved and have no active leads. So that's their definition of the cold cases in their parks. It doesn't just include missing persons, it also includes accidents and crimes that have yet to be solved and have no active leads. The cold cases are listed chronologically, which is by the dates that they happened, with the most recent being first and the oldest being last, on the NPS, on nps.gov. Active missing persons cases and crime cases are not listed in these, as the National Park Service is still getting tips concerning those cases. So the first of these I'm going to talk about is one that I mentioned a while ago, which is the missing persons case of James Pruitt. He is the most recent cold case of missing persons in the United States National Parks. He was reported missing in Rocky Mountain National Park on February 28, 2019, as I said earlier. At that time, he was 70 years old, a white male who was 5 foot 6 inches tall, approximately 150 pounds, had blue eyes and brown/gray hair. Now, for these cases, I will give their physical description and information concerning the areas they planned to go to or were seen at or near. I may tell the items that they had and what they were wearing at a later date. And I was like, since these are cold cases, with the newest being over 2.5 years old, I do not feel that information would be helpful to give. But then I discovered that it actually could. So when I go back over these cases, I will, not all of them have information even about what they were wearing or what they had with them, but the ones that do have that information, when I go back over them, I will let you all know that information, so that people who are out hiking and in the national parks who find items that they think might have belonged to these people, can take pictures of them and let the National Park Service know they've located these items. Mr. Pruitt parked in the Glacier Gorge parking lot on February 28, 2019, and took a day hike to an unknown destination. On March the 3rd, 2019, the United States Park Rangers found his vehicle in that lot where it had been parked overnight for several nights, actually, but they could tell it had been there at least overnight. There was no backcountry permit associated with his vehicle, meaning he should not have been gone overnight. Pruitt's family was contacted and told the Rangers he did not plan to stay overnight in the park. They had not heard from him since February the 28th. The National Park Service made extensive search efforts in the area. However, due to lack of clues and extreme winter weather, they had to limit their search efforts on March the 11th, 2019. They did perform multiple searches in the summer and fall of 2019 to no avail. So he is still missing. The next case is, and I apologize if I mispronounce his name, Jonghyon, who is missing in the Grand Canyon National Park as of September 17, 2017. One is one of the ones who did not have much information, and I believe that he's the only one. All of the ones that I saw, except for perhaps the kayakers that did not say what gender they were all males, and with the exception of Jonghyon, they were all white males, which I thought was interesting. But one was a 45-year-old Asian male who was 5 foot 7 inches tall, weighed 121 pounds, had brown eyes and black hair. Juan had no known plans at the park, and his current whereabouts are unknown. He had not mentioned to anyone that he was planning to go there. His white Toyota Camry was found at Moran Point on the south rim of the Grand Canyon National Park on September 17, 2017. So he may have actually been missing for longer than that. That's just the date that his vehicle was found. His vehicle had also previously been seen near the New Hants trailhead, and it says that one was from Los Angeles, California. So my thoughts are either he was looking for a place to hike, maybe a place to use the restroom while he was traveling. Perhaps he was having car trouble and he pulled over a couple of times because his car was overheating or something like that. But he had no plans to even be going to that area, so it makes me think that perhaps he was just traveling by there and ended up getting out of his vehicle and something happened to him, sadly. And of course, his case is still open and he is still missing. The next one is that of Peter Jackson, not the movie director and producer, but Peter Jackson, who went missing from Yosemite National Park on September 17, 2016. Jackson was a 64-year-old white male, 5 foot 10 inches tall, 155 pounds, with blue eyes. He has short gray hair and a beard. He was said to be in excellent physical condition. It is believed he took a day hike from his campsite at White Wolf Campground and did not return. He had texted his son on September 17, 2016, and said he was on his way to the park. His vehicle was found at his campsite, and camping fees were paid through September the 21st of 2016, so he had plans to be there for a while. On October 2nd, 2016, the search for him was placed in continuous limited mode. In August of 2019, now this is part of what made me go, oh, well, I guess I should tell the information about what these people were wearing and what they had. In August 2019, Jackson's backpack was found in the Ackerson Meadow/Aspen Valley area on the west side of Yosemite National Park, which per my maps on my phone is approximately 29 miles from his campsite, or slightly more than a 6-hour walk, taking the shortest route. I think that's estimated giving my general walking speed, so he might have been able to do it faster since he was in excellent shape. Perhaps since he is quite a bit older than me, he might have been a little slower than that. I mean, it actually said 6 hours and 2 minutes was what it said. But his backpack was found, but there were no remains found in that general area. And the next one is Floyd E. Roberts III, who went missing in Grand Canyon National Park. Most of these Grand Canyon ones are right next to each other, ironically. On June 17, 2016, he was 52 years old, a white male, 5 foot 11 inches tall, weighed 170 pounds, had brown/gray hair and brown eyes. Roberts had started a multi-day hike with some companions when he became separated from the group during extreme heat conditions. This occurred in a remote part of the western Grand Canyon on the Shivwitz Plateau. They had planned a 9-day hike that would come out of the canyon via Separation Canyon. He was last seen near Kelly Tank, heading towards Trail Canyon /214 Mile Canyon in the Shanley Spring area. So he was walking towards the river, likely so that he could cool off because of the extreme heat conditions. He may have gone into 209, or he may have gone into 209 Mile Canyon instead. An intensive 6-day search was carried out, yet the incident is unresolved and Roberts is still missing. The search for him is also in continuous limited mode at this time. Several of these, I'm like, it seems to me like they probably went to the river, got into the river, and something happened. A big current came by or something and swept them away, sadly, and they ended up drowning, especially these Grand Canyon ones, because most of them, they were last seen near a body of water. The next one is Morgan Heimer. He went missing in Grand Canyon National Park on June 2nd, 2015. He was 22 years old, a white male, 6 foot tall, 175 pounds, had blonde hair and blue eyes. There aren't very many details about his disappearance, only that he was last seen on Tuesday, June 2nd, 2015, around the Colorado River near mile 213, so about a mile from where the other guy was headed, which is near Pumpkin Springs. The search for him is also now in continuous limited mode. I did include what he was wearing. It says he was wearing a dark, well, part of it. It says he was wearing a dark colored astral personal flotation device. So he may have been swimming and got swept away by the river, sadly. And the next one is Drake Kramer. He was reported missing also from Grand Canyon National Park on July. No, I'm sorry. He was reported missing from Grand Canyon National Park on January the 31st, 2015. He was 21 years old, a white male, 5 foot 8 inches tall, 140 pounds, with brown hair and blue eyes. Kramer drove a silver Mazda 6 sedan to the park, and I thought it was interesting that it worded it like that because that makes it sound like it wasn't his vehicle. Perhaps he rented it or borrowed it from someone. Very little information is on the site for him as well, but it states that Kramer was last seen at the Bright Angel Lodge and was believed to be suicidal at the time he went missing. The search for him is in continuous limited mode also. And next, the seventh one is Mitchell Del Stehling, possibly pronounced Stehling, Stehling. He went missing in Mesa Verde National Park on June the 9th, 2019. He was 51 years old, a white male, 6 foot tall, approximately 200 pounds, had brown and gray hair and brown eyes. He was last seen Sunday, June 9th, 2013, hiking in the park. Stehling was on a road trip with his wife, mother, and father when he told his family he wanted to see the Spruce Tree House cliff dwelling and began a hike to it at about 4:30 p.m. I don't blame him for that. Sounds like it's a really cool place. The trail that the dwelling is, or the trail to the dwelling, is less than a fourth mile long and connects to the Petroglyph Point Trail. He did not return from his hike. And this was another thing that made me go, well, I guess I should tell what they were wearing and what they had with them. An anonymous tip led to the discovery of human remains in a remote area of the park. United States Park Rangers, an ISB special agent, and members of the Montezuma County Coroner's Office located and recovered the remains on September 17, 2020. So this was just last year. The anonymous tip told them that they believed there were human remains in this area. It says these remains were found about 4.2 miles from where Stehling was last seen. Positive ID is pending DNA analysis, but personal items that were located with the remains indicate they were those of Stehling. Park officials say there is no sign of foul play. And I believe there's another one. See, they found the one guy's backpack, and this guy, his personal belongings were found next to those remains. So they're pretty sure that it was him that they found. And I believe there's at least one other one that it states something similar to that about. Derek J., and I'm probably going to mispronounce his last name. My German should help me pronounce it, but Derek J., it's either Lueking or Lacking. I'm leaning kind of more toward Lacking, actually, but even my German. But Derek J. Lueking went missing in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park on March 17th, 2012, St. Patrick's Day. He was 24 years old, a white male, 5 foot 11 inches tall, 220 pounds, had green eyes and brown hair with a short beard. He was last seen leaving the Microtel Hotel in Cherokee, North Carolina. His car was found parked in the lower lot of Newfound Gap at the North Carolina/Tennessee state line. Where he may have gone from there is unknown. And it didn't state that his that they're still searching for him in continuous limited mode, but I'm sure that they are. But yeah, so he left this microtel hotel in Cherokee, North Carolina, no one knowing where he was headed from there. And then his car was found parked in this lower lot of the Newfound Gap at the North Carolina-Tennessee state line. And no one knows why the car was there by itself without him. They don't know where he went from there. Did he park, take a hike? Did he catch a ride with someone else? They don't know for sure. And then the next one is the case of Adam Clayton Lyle Jones. I think this is the one that I thought was so sad because I felt like there should be more information available due to surveillance stuff that I feel like they should have had. Anyway, Adam Clayton Lyle Jones was reported missing from the Grand Canyon National Park on March 31st, 2011. And I know that visitor centers in Arkansas and Oklahoma had security cameras at that time. I don't know. You would think the national parks would have them. He was a 23-year-old male, 5'7". He's the one. It does not tell what his race is actually, but I'm pretty sure he was white. But yes, he was reported missing from Grand Canyon National Park on March 31st, 2011. Was a 23-year-old male, 5'7" tall, weighed 140 pounds. He had blue eyes and light brown hair. His family last saw him in Gulf Breeze, Florida on March 31st, 2011, which is the last reported time he was seen by anyone, which is hard for me to believe. You drive, well, I haven't said where, well, actually, I guess I did say that he was reported missing in Grand Canyon National Park. So he drives all the way from Florida to Grand Canyon National Park, and nobody saw him after he left his house. He had to stop for gas, snacks, drinks, use the bathroom. I mean, someone had to have seen him. But anyway, his vehicle was found in the Grand Canyon National Park at the Grand Canyon Visitor Center, the South Rim Visitor Center, on May 5th, 2011. And I just wrote oh gracious, because he was last seen March 31st, 2011. His vehicle wasn't found until May 5th, 2011. That's a long time for him to have been gone without his family hearing from him and no one seeing him. And then his vehicle was just found and there's no trace of him. And as I said, it's a national park visitor center on the south rim of the national park. I feel like in 2011 there should have been some sort of surveillance for the visitor center and even the parking area, because crimes are committed at national parks. Get surveillance systems, people. But anyway, that's just my 10 cents worth. So the next one, and this is the last cold case one that I'm going to cover on this video. I will cover 5 to 6 more on the next video and do updates for the people who I have, not all of these people that I've already covered, but for the ones that are in the limelight basically right now. And the last one I'm doing today for the cold cases is George Penca, possibly Penca, probably Penca actually, George Penca. He went missing in Yosemite National Park on June the 17th, 2011. He was a 30-year-old white male, 5'10" tall, weighed 240 pounds, had dark brown hair and blue eyes. There's not much information on his case either. Penca was hiking with a group when he got separated from them and went off by himself. It says he was last seen at around 2:40 p.m., June 17, 2011, at the top of Upper Yosemite Falls. So I'm guessing that the people who reported seeing him there are not his friends that he was hiking with, though I could be wrong about that. So I will continue next Monday with the cases, the cold cases. Right now, I need to also talk about the Aubrey Dameron case, any updates to the case, to her case, as well as the cases of Josue Calderon, Kylan Schulte, and Crystal Turner Beck, Gabby Petito. I have a little bit more to mention about Robert, Bob Lowery, as I mentioned earlier, and very little on on Brian Laundrie at this time. So, Josue Calderon's family. This is not really new information, but I had not seen it when I did my last Mystery Mondays video. So Josue Calderon's family says he had no car, so they have no idea how he ended up more than 800 miles from his home. His body was found, as I've reported before, on October 9th near Blowing Rock, North Carolina, that Josue was from Rhode Island. He was... upon recovering his body, they discovered that there was a homicide. He had been stabbed, and there was no vehicle found. I'm sorry, lost my place. Yes, there was no vehicle found at the Yadkin Valley Overlook at the time that they recovered his body, or that his body was reported. No vehicle that did not belong to anyone, I'm guessing, is what they mean by that. Calderon was a father and had several family members, and there were some witnesses in the area that said it was very, very foggy that Saturday morning, so it's possible that someone chose that area to dump his body, sadly, not realizing that Yadkin Valley overhang is normally a very popular spot along the Appalachian Trail. Currently, there are no more updates on Josue's case. The next one I'm going to talk about is the Crystal Turner Beck and Kylan Schulte case. There are some new things that are going on with this case, though no one has been arrested and there's not any real new information. But the first thing that I found out is that Cindy Sue Hunter, who I had mentioned before, I was like, geez, hopefully she didn't kill them, because she seemed to have found them awfully quick, which people are saying about Brian Laundrie's parents finding his body, which actually, from what I understand, the FBI found his body. But anyway, or his remains. But she actually spent over 5 hours looking for them, showing people their pictures, describing their vehicle, and asking them if they had seen the couple before she headed to where she knew that they had been camping, because she was a friend of theirs. So they had told their friends where they were camping. The ladies had not moved their campsite, according to her, because of the man, but they had mentioned him to their friends at the bar, and their friends warned the couple to not return to their campsite that night. They felt it was a very bad idea to hang out with friends at the bar, and from what I understand, after that, they went to a home of some of the friends and hang out with them there. The last time they were seen alive was at Woody's Tavern the night of August 13th, which I believe is in Moab, Utah, which I did not realize that actually fell on a Friday the 13th, ironically. Their bodies were found on August the 18th at their campsite near the LaSalle Loop Road, close to Moab, Utah. And as I said a while ago, they were found by Cindy Sue Hunter, who was a friend of theirs after Kylan Schulte's father had contacted her and told her he hadn't heard from Kylan in several days. And of course, neither of them had shown up for work the morning of August the 14th. They had multiple gunshot wounds. This is according to their autopsy reports. They had multiple gunshot wounds to their backs, sides, and chest. So it's like they just got ambushed. Investigators called 911 from the location of their campsite where they were found to ping the nearest cell phone tower. The information from the search warrant for, the information from the search warrant for a dump of that tower, the data concerning that reportedly came back on Tuesday, October the 26th, 2021, which is the new information that I'm talking about concerning this case. Officials cannot and will not release that information, of course, to the public, as I've stated before, until they have probably made an arrest in the case or proven that none of the calls, texts, etc. were related to what occurred. They don't want to jeopardize their case by releasing the information that they obtain using the search warrant of the cell tower. And there was a police officer who stated that they may not view text or calls themselves, but it can lead them to a phone carrier and the person or people who own the phone or phones. And he stated that at a later date, they find something that they feel is really interesting, and they only did the search warrant for a 2-mile area around the campsite where the ladies were camping and where they were found. But he stated that at a later date, they may actually be able to view not, of course, not phone calls, but like the text messages and like who the people were calling from the campsite and stuff such as that. But at this time, they probably would just be looking for the person in general. And Cindy Sue Hunter mentioned that Schulte had reportedly told friends a creepy man had been harassing and intimidating them, and that if anything happened to them, as we know she had said, they had been murdered, implying he would have done it. And I still wonder myself why they didn't take a picture of this guy. I'm out somewhere, like I'm not even at a campsite, which is fairly remote. I'm like in town and someone's harassing me in this age of cell phones. I'm probably going to take a picture of them so that if something happens, someone will know, you know. But that's right now all that I have on the Schulte and Turner Beck case. There are very few, of course, updates to Gabby Petito's case at this time, though I do have a couple of notes that I made. I watched the 2020 special, as I'm sure a lot of people have watched. So the updates to the Gabby Petito case, from what I got from the 2020 story on Gabby, is that she had, well, what I gathered from watching it did not say this, she had separation anxiety, and that's why she was so upset when the police were telling her that they would have to separate her and Brian for the night. Initially, when I watched it, I was like, she's terrified. Like when they told her that they weren't going to arrest her, but they would have to separate them, she obviously got way more upset. And now watching this, I was like, well, I mean, she has mentioned that she has anxiety. And knowing people that have separation anxiety and things such as that, I was like, she's having a separation anxiety attack is actually what part of it is. I'm not saying that's all of what was going on, but that was part of it. And according to Gabby's dad, while Brian was in Florida from August the 17th through the 23rd, which I thought that he returned from Florida to Utah on the 24th, but possibly he left Florida on the 23rd and didn't get to Utah until the 24th, because you know how flights are. They like to do the layovers the last hours on end. But according to Gabby's dad, Gabby stayed in Salt Lake City, Utah, where she worked on her YouTube channel instead of staying in Moab. It was my understanding that she was still in Moab and Brian returned to Moab, but I guess that's inaccurate. I guess her dad would know more than I would, obviously. And according to the story on 2020, 9 people have been found since Gabby was reported missing. Now, I'm still not sure how accurate that is, because I saw a story one time that said 5 people, another story that said 6, and these stories were including Kylan Schulte and Crystal Turner Beck, whose bodies were found before Gabby was even missing. So that is not accurate. They were found August the 18th, so you can't include them in there. But anyway, it is good that more missing people have been being found because of the publicity of Gabby's case. And of course, they mentioned that Gabby was found in the Spread Creek area, and her body was found in the creek bed, they said, which I thought was interesting. I had heard before that she was found near what appeared to be a campsite. There was like a half circle of where a fire had been, where close to where her remains were found, from what I had heard before. But they also said that DNA was collected from her body. Now, I had forgot to mention when I did my last video, and I mentioned it on my Masked Singer video, that they had said that possibly the only way they can find out for sure now if Brian Laundrie did kill Gabby is by using DNA. And since they had such a close relationship, it would be very difficult for them to do that, and it might take some time. Well, so this expert guy said that they did collect DNA from Gabby's body, and he said that if DNA was underneath the finger marks on her neck, and apparently there were some finger marks that were on her neck when they found her remains, and said that if there was DNA under those finger marks on her neck, that would tell them who killed her, because the DNA would not be there unless that was the person who had had their hands around her throat, sadly. And they also mentioned on there that the Gabby Petito Foundation fundraiser raised $13,700. And I made a note that apparently the foundation is slated to help only women who are involved in domestic violence. And I put on there, I wouldn't word it that way, because women who abuse their female partners or their male partners are involved in domestic violence. They're not victims, but they are involved in it. So I would not say those who are involved in domestic violence. I would say those who are victims of it. And I wouldn't only help women. I would strive to help anyone that is in a domestic violence situation if I had the ability to do that. I don't have the ability to do that. But so now I'm going to talk a little bit about the other information that I found on Robert Bob Lowery's case. Of course, he is from Texas, and his remains were found on September 28th, 2021, after he went missing in the Teton National Park. On August the 20th, 2021, his remains were found because of attention that was brought to his case, given the fact that he was missing in the same park that Gabby Petito had gone missing in. And the new information that I wanted to mention was that volunteer rescue teams with a dog found his remains and a black Nike duffel bag on a steep wooded slope. Because of Gabby Petito's case, at least 2 people contacted law enforcement about the last place Bob was possibly seen, which led them to his remains being discovered later that week. This information also stated that he was seen wearing a black baseball cap with a letter P and carrying a black Nike logo duffel bag. And that duffel bag, the black duffel bag with the Nike logo on it, was found near his remains. And they also, of course, used DNA and dental records, I believe, to identify his remains. So that was another thing that, this is the one I was thinking of a while ago, that made me go, when I'm talking about these cold cases, I do need to mention, if the website says what they were wearing and what they have with them, I need to make sure to mention that, because his remains were found in part because of the duffel bag, as were the other remains I mentioned earlier. And then the one guy, they found his backpack, but have not yet found his remains. But hopefully at some point his remains will be found somewhere close to that area where his backpack was found. And so now I have very little information concerning Brian Laundrie updates. There, I think, is probably more information. There's stuff on the internet that I'm like, okay, guys, I don't think that his parents were trying to get a deal with the FBI to get immunity. And there's a lot of stuff about his parents suddenly finding his remains, and like, dude, this area where his remains were found had pretty much been underwater from the time his parents told authorities that he was missing until the time that he was found. It's my understanding that possibly the water had receded the day before he was found, and that was when the park reopened to the public. And when his parents found out that the park had reopened to the public, they contacted authorities, or their attorney contacted authorities and told them that the parents were planning to go and look for his remains again. I'm sorry, I'm running almost an hour, which is what I figured I'd probably end up doing. But what I have new about him right now is that when Brian Laundrie's remains were found, the medical examiner couldn't rule on his manner of death or his cause of death. On October 25th, an autopsy report ruled the manner of death of Brian Laundrie as inconclusive, as most people figured that it would, in my personal opinion, since very few remains were found. From what I understand, it was a partial skull and a couple more bones. So that's not very many. And that's all I'm going to say concerning him at this time. I checked for, because as I said, there's a lot of stuff out there that is not really accurate stuff, and that is stuff like Dog the Bounty Hunter and Gabby Petito's supposed best friend, the TikToker, wanting more publicity and stuff like that. And I'm not going to milk that. They can do their own thing. But so lastly, I did check for updates concerning the Aubrey Dameron case. She has been missing from Grove, Oklahoma since March 9th, 2019. I did quite a bit on her on my last Mystery Mondays video, I believe it was. And I did not find any new information concerning her case. Now, I was actually going to go to the Facebook page that her family made concerning her and see if there was any new information on there. And I forgot to do that before I went to sleep last night. And I've not done much since I got up this morning, aside for preparing for doing this. So, as I mentioned in that video, Aubrey Dameron is a transgender Indigenous woman. Some, including her aunt, believe that perhaps her stepfather and mother and brother had something to do with her disappearing, that sadly perhaps they actually did something to her, but that is not known for sure. It is said the story that is sort of consistent among those three, the mother and brother, which their stories are slightly different, but basically the story is that Aubrey went to leave the morning of March the 9th, 2019 at approximately 3:33 a.m. And she stated that she was going to meet someone, and that was all that she said to them. She did not have a vehicle, so it was sort of assumed that somebody had picked her up, but I don't know about that. That's the case for sure, and neither does anyone else really. But anyway, that is all that I have for right now. I always forget to say to subscribe at the first, and I don't know that anyone watches my videos to the end. But if you're still watching, please subscribe and share on your social media so that other people can see and get interested maybe and subscribe. I do plan on my Mystery Mondays videos for the next few weeks to cover the rest of the cold cases of missing persons in the United States national parks. And then, as I said earlier, I plan to do like 5 or 6 of them. There are 29 of them, and I've done 10 so far. So I plan to do 5 or 6 a week and do some updates on these more recent cases. If there is any update, I'm hoping, hopefully there will be something big in the Crystal Turner Beck and Colin Schulte case real soon. I'm really hoping for that. And I had stated at one point that I felt Brian Laundrie would be found dead or alive by October 20th at the latest, and that's when he ended up being found. I'm not claiming to have psychic powers in any way, shape, or form. I just felt like that if he was on the lam and hiding, that he would run out of resources by that time and feel that it was necessary for him to come out of hiding, which apparently that was not even the case. But I am going to sign off. I hope you enjoyed my video. Everyone have a great whatever time of night or day it is in your part of the world. Stay safe and stay positive.